In this video, we're going to show you how to install the coolant crossover pipe on your Jeep Grand Cherokee located on the front side of your engine. Go ahead and lift up on our engine cover here. Set that aside. Using a flathead screwdriver, loosen the hose clamp securing the air intake tube to the airbox. And go ahead and separate that. Now just in front of the throttle body, there's going to be a air intake temp sensor here. You can twist this and remove it. We do want to protect that sensor, so the best option is to use your little flathead pocket screwdriver, press in on this little tab, and disconnect the connector to it. Loosen the hose clamp securing the air intake tube to the throttle body. We're using a 5/16 shallow socket. With that loose, I'm going to go ahead and lift up on our intake and pull this off. Follow the tube back to our mid portion right here, and we're going to lift up on this here, popping this out of a rubber grommet, and then we can remove the whole unit. Set it aside. Now the next thing we want to do is drain our radiator of the coolant. Now right here on the lower driver side is normally where the drain knob would be. Our knob broke off. So, well, we can't drain it using the knob. We ended up heating up the tip of our screwdriver and inserting it gently into this here to create a little notch. Let it cool off, and now we can unthread this. Now we also have our catch can underneath. It's set up on this driver's side corner, so the coolant should run down and run out of that corner. Let's go ahead and unthread this. Now with that opened up, we're going to open up our radiator cap. That releases the pressure, and our lower vent, or a lower drain plug, is flowing good. So now we just need to wait till the radiator is done draining. On the top of our bracket right here, there's a wire harness. We're going to use our trim tool. We'll go ahead and pop this out. Now that we have this harness removed, we're going to come on over here to this vacuum hose. We want to go ahead and release the lock tab on it. So you're going to gently come down here and gently pull out on the red tabs and push up, releasing the lock. Pull that up and slide that off. Use your 15mm socket, loosen and remove these bolts. I'm going to swing this off to the side here. I'm going to go ahead and anchor this unit here. Hold this up. We don't want to have additional pressure pulling on the wires here. Just keep that plugged in and off to the side. We're going to loosen our hose clamp here. Pull that hose off. Loosen and remove our two 10mm bolts on our thermostat housing. Pull that out. We want to remove our 10mm bolt starting from the center lower up and work our way around. Now as I remove these bolts here, I'm putting them in their perspective ports on the new crossover. Now we can go ahead and grab this here and pull it off of the engine. And we're going to use a sanding block as basically just a piece of wood with a flat surface with some sandpaper on it. This is 400 grit. And we want to go along the mating surface here and gently clean up the surface where the gasket is going to go. The reason why we're doing this, not using power tools, is that we don't want to gouge the aluminum, causing a possibility for a coolant leak later on. So we'll take a little bit of time to do this. You can use a smaller block of wood, but it gives us a nice flat surface and makes it even all the way across. Continue to do that until the surface is nice and clean of any of the corrosion and debris on there. And once you've done cleaning everything up, we now want to go ahead and wipe out any of the debris from inside here. We don't want this flushing through the motor. Now on our old crossover tube here, I want to pay attention before we install the new part. Wherever there was a long bolt installed on this, because we have short and long bolts, the longer bolt holes are going to have a plastic sleeve inside of it. Now I'm going to use a small pick, and for instance, this one here is one of those holes. I'm going to push through on the edge, and it's going to push through this plastic sleeve. We need to transfer this sleeve over onto the new component. And you want to make sure you do that for any of the holes that had long bolts in it. Now here we have our new coolant crossover unit, and there's different size bolts that run around this. There are 3 short bolts that go through, and then the other ones go through the main cover itself and then into another component itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Sharpie marker, and on the front side where the short bolts are, I'm going to mark the face so I know exactly where those bolts go. So there are 4 short bolts and the rest are long. The long bolts are all the same length. So at this point here, I can go ahead and remove all of the bolts. Now the plastic sleeves that we pulled out of our old cover, we're going to go ahead and insert it through the back side of our holes on the long bolt holes. So we used a marker to mark the shallow bolt holes. Take our sleeve, put it into the back side. Now this isn't necessary, or it's not a have to do, but we're able to salvage all of our plastic inserts from the factory. So we're going to install them on our replacement component. Now I'm going to insert the long bolts. I'm going to thread those into the sleeves. Now we have our long bolts installed. On the back side here, we have our gasket already installed on the unit. You would just want to make sure that it's fully seated, so just use your finger, go all the way around, make sure it is pressed in all the way. Now we can go ahead and line this up onto the engine itself. We're going to go ahead and start all of these bolts by hand. Once we get these started, we'll go ahead and get these shorter bolts started. Now that we have all of the bolts started, we're going to go ahead and gently snug them all down. I want to go ahead and torque all these bolts down to 8 foot-pounds, and we're going to start in the center, come up, and we're going to work our way out to the outer edges. Now the pattern is not exact, you just want to do this evenly. Once you get all these torqued, we can now go ahead and install our hose. Get that lined up. Take your thermostat and housing, go ahead and line that up. You want to make sure that the gasket is fully seated on there. Now, if the vehicle has some high mileage on it, you definitely want to inspect the gasket on the thermostat housing. Make sure that is in good condition. If it does look worn or flush with the housing itself, you want to go ahead and replace that. But ours is in new condition there, so we're just going to go ahead and snug this down. Snug it gently. Now we're going to go ahead and torque this. It is 7.3 foot-pounds or 10 Newton metrics. Go ahead and remove your securing strap here. Go ahead and swing this over, line it up, and we'll get our bolt started. And then we'll install our little plastic retainer button for the harness. Then we'll install the hose on the front side here. Make sure that that locking clip is pulled up. Line that up, insert it, and then press that locking clip down. On the bottom here, don't forget to tighten down the petcock or the radiator drain. And snug it down gently. Install your air intake. I'm going to install the intake on the throttle body. Wheel that on. Bring our air intake tube over to the air box. Slide that into place. Now our air intake area has a little plastic stud on the bottom. Just want to line that up and push it into the grommet. There it is. You'll feel it seat in. Tighten down the hose clamp for the air box. Tighten down the hose clamp on the throttle body side. Snug that down. Now right beside it we have the air temp sensor connector. I'm going to line that up and push that on. You're going to feel it and hear it click into place. Install the upper lid. You want to install these plastic studs. There's a few of them around the top of the engine that pop into the rubber grommets on the upper plenum here. So if you simply line up that front one, push it down, the rest of them line up. Just tap that down. Open up the radiator cap. Now you can use your standard funnel. We're going to install our radiator fill kit. You're using the appropriate coolant. You want to go ahead and fill up the radiator. Once this is filled, we'll go ahead and fill the expansion tank to the full mark. Go ahead and put our cap on this. Secure that properly. Fill up our expansion tank to the full mark. Once we have that to the full mark, go ahead and secure that cap. Start up the vehicle, let it run for about 15 to 20 minutes. Wait for that thermostat to open up. Let it warm up a little bit more. Go for a road test. You want to come on back and make sure this is still at the full mark. If you have to, open this up to fill it again. Do not open up the radiator cap to fill here. Only fill through the expansion tank itself. After that, you're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.